Do you want to know who I don't like even one little bit? And I don't have the slightest shred of respect for? I mean, if you're watching this, I'm going to assume that you do want to know, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you. Andrew Tate. I don't like him. I don't have the slightest shred of respect for him. The guy is, he wants to present himself like he's supposed to, some kind of uber alpha male. He's a scheming little thief. He's the worst kind of thief. He's the kind of thief that literally goes behind the backs of people in his employ, of women in his employ, to steal from them. Not only steal from them and make off with a bunch of money that they are ostensibly, earning, but to steal it under the guise that he's withholding it for the purpose of income tax, not paying the income tax, and then not only stealing the money that he told them that he was taking for income tax, and then leaving them holding the bag for the income tax. Like, that's the kind of thief that Andrew Tate is. I don't have any respect for anybody who is anything like that. So if I have that little respect for Andrew Tate, you can imagine how little respect I must have for his brother Tristan. Because Andrew Tate, at least you can say, that he was a professional kickboxer of some manner, not nearly as successful as he tells everybody that he was, but he was. He did do it. So, at least he's got that much going for him. Andrew Tate, rather I should say Tristan Tate, I don't think anybody should be able to figure out what the appeal of this guy's supposed to be. He's like Andrew Tate's little brother, but if I'm not mistaken, maybe Tristan Tate, he might actually be the older of the two, which arguably makes it that much sadder. But okay, so all I've really done here for the last 2 minutes is just go on about why I can't stand these guys. Maybe I should talk about why I actually brought it up. Because I wouldn't really bring it up if I didn't think that I had any good reason to. And so what precipitated this, I actually saw something recently, and this is a little bit old news, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to pop to that. This is older news. But about 3 weeks ago, the UFC middleweight champion of the world, Sean Strickland, the guy who just a few weeks ago went out and took the championship off of Israel Adesanya, which was something that a lot of people didn't think could be done before Alex Pereira actually did it. But after Adesanya took the championship back from Pereira, I think maybe a lot of people thought that there was nobody that could take it back again, and then along comes Sean Strickland and just snatches it, just body snatches it. Just like takes it with the quickness like that. It was amazing. Nobody saw it coming. But Sean Strickland, now that he is the middleweight champion of the world, has a little bit more of a platform than just being one of UFC's kind of resident weirdos. And I actually do like Sean Strickland, a lot more than it's probably fashionable to. But let's be honest with you, his biggest claim to fame is that he's a little bit of a weirdo. But now Sean Strickland is more than just a little bit of a weirdo. He's a little bit of a weirdo who is a world champion. And with that comes a certain platform. And one of the first things that Sean Strickland decided to use that platform for, and I respect so much that he did this, was actually to call out the Tate brothers and some of the just bizarre level of reverence that a lot of people, particularly young men, unfortunately, seem to have for these two guys. And he has basically said, it's like, we understand why it is that you look up to these guys. It's because you're moralless young men. Nobody has really taught you the morality that is necessary to understand why these two guys are such just garbage individuals. And he went on to talk about the whole scheme that the Tate brothers had, where they had like all of these cam girls set up, and then they were going out and they were basically stealing from these cam girls. And apparently Tristan Tate found out about this, and for some reason, he didn't like it. But for some reason, he, of all people, thought that he was the guy to try to clap back at the middleweight champion of the world. And he came back, and he basically said that Sean Strickland is a hypocrite, because he's a professional fighter, and because people gamble on his fights. And so if he was any kind of, if he had the kind of morals that he says he does, he would do something to make sure that nobody could gamble on his fights and lose money on his fights. And I'm sure that in Tristan Tate's mind, that must have sounded like some grade A stuff. That must have sounded really convincing, to him, because he's an idiot. And it doesn't really take much for an idiot to convince themselves, other than the detail that the idiot would like to be convinced. But to pretend that there is anything remotely similar whatsoever about a guy being a professional fighter and having people that have nothing to do with him bet on his fights with organizations that he has nothing to do with is anything even remotely like, running a cam girl business where you're stealing from the employees and then you're stealing from the men that are sending money ostensibly to these girls, and you're defrauding the men and you're defrauding the women. To pretend that there's anything even remotely similar between these two things is the kind of absurdity that could only drop out of the mouth of a Tate. Because to say this so simply, Sean Strickland, he hasn't done anything dishonest, at least so far as I'm aware of. But in just going into that cage to fight, Sean Strickland is doing the most, honestly, what is frankly the most honest thing that a man can do. He is putting his fate literally into his own two hands, and he is going into that cage. He's literally going into a cage, to go and contest that against another man who has put his own fate into his two hands just to find out who the better of the two is. There is nothing more honest that a person could actually do than that. It's certainly a good deal more honest than stealing from people. Running a business that is borderline fraudulent in the first place, and then further defrauding literally everybody else involved in it. These two things are literally absolutely nothing alike. And so really all that you've seen here is the lengths that a dishonest man will go to try to discredit an honest man, with a rationale that is designed to falsely exonerate the dishonest man for his dishonesty. And that's the kind of little snatch and grab op that Tristan Tate just tried to pull on Sean Strickland, who is a guy who, make absolutely no mistake about this, would dog walk either one of the Tate brothers. Would absolutely dog walk them if he ever got his hands on them. I mean, Tristan Tate, do you want to know what his kickboxing record is? 0-1. 0 wins, 1 loss. He tried it out once, got his ass whipped, decided that he didn't want to do that again. Which is fair enough. That's how a lot of other people learn that combat sports is not for them. Guys whose ego can't take that first beating, which statistically, almost everybody who tries their hand at it is probably going to take on their first time out. Yeah, best of luck to you with that, Tristan. I think you would need it. I do believe that you would need it.